to be finally fitted on to this front suspension to give it the final little bit of strength that it needs to stop the cycle wing brackets wobbling about and then eventually snapping off. So this is probably the Mark 10 or Mark 9 front cycle wing brackets that we've made at Robin Hood, and you can see that there's a lot of work gone into these, in so much as a double plate there's these little brackets, and now it's made from this solid bar. So if we look down closely at the actual hub, we can see that we've got a pinch bolt that we said went through there, a special long pinch bolt. If I could just be past that pinch bolt. It isn't a true bolt, it's actually a set screw because the threads go right up to the head. But it is a high tensile item and it is perfect for what we want now. So basically, into this bracket that we've snapped off, we will drill this is a 12mm bolt. So we'll drill a 13mm hole in that bracket, because what will happen is that with a 13mm hole drilled through that bracket, and then that will go through the pinch bolt will go through the clamp to clamp it up, and that bracket will then be on the other side of the inner of the two. That snapped off, forget that, that shouldn't be there. So that bracket will be on the inner side of that. So we'll be able to drill through there like that and put a small 6mm nut and bolt through that to bolt that. And that really does a trick to stop this bracket moving around, resonating when the car is moving. We'll just move to a car across here that's complete, and you'll probably be able to see it a little bit clearer. So you can see this is a car that we're working on, and you can see that we've got the bracket on the same side, and you can see we've snapped off the little brackets from there, and there's the pinch bolt that's gone through from this side actually, and you can see the small 6mm nuts and bolts that have gone through there, and that's really made it solid. You can see probably that we've got the suspension sitting down onto that nut just there, and basically that, apart from being painted up and cleaned up, that is the wing bracket on. Having said all that, there is a lot more work to do with this bracket in the way of fitting on the two hockey-shaped stick tubular sections that actually hold the wing on. And in actual fact, there is one operation that you need to do, and you can only do, Ross, if you could turn the steering wheel around for me, you can only do once that you've completed the operation. You'll see that that tag just there that sticks out horizontal, that we've bent it down and we've put a small nut and bolt through that. We've knocked it down, we've drilled it, and we've drilled through the casing or the casting or the forging through there, because it is hollow up there and you can get in up there to put a nut on it. So to get the, is the word orientation, to get the orientation of that bracket correct, so that the legs of it just almost touch the tyre or just miss the tyre, you do need to fix it in that position even before you put those brackets on. So unfortunately you've got to go a little bit further before you commit yourself fully to putting those two little brackets on. You can probably see the bracket a lot better here. If you just come round here a little bit, cameraman person, you can see that bracket through there. Before you commit yourself to these brackets and bending that tag down and putting that final bolt in there, you really do need to go a bit further. The next stage that we'll show you later on with putting the wheel on and putting the remainder of the cycle wing brackets. So in actual fact, although I've showed you this process now, then the little brackets and that bending that tag down and drilling through there will be done finally. To continue, a little time has elapsed since the last part of the video, but when we came to put the cycle wing brackets through the threaded sleeve, they were a very tight fit and we had to file them out. Obviously this is information that we'd relay through to the people that do the programs, and we'd ask them to make those holes a little bit bigger, which we did, and they came back with an answer that I had forgotten about, and they said no, they can't make them bigger because of the limitations of the equipment we use. We can't get it so precise that it would not be too big. So rather than it to be too big and to be sloppy in that hole, they make it slightly undersized so that you've got to file it out, because there is only a very slight shoulder on that threaded tube. So yes, they won't go on straight away, you do need to file them out. And again, with these washers that go on top of the chassis, where the threaded tube comes out of the McPherson strut, again, these are deliberately made so they won't go on to the top of the McPherson strut. You have got to file them out so they're a good fit. So the ones that go over, that's got the other washer welded on as a spring seat, they're okay, but the ones on the very top, you will have to file them out. We come on to the next stage of this build, and it's pretty straightforward. We've tipped this chassis upside down now, and we go on to fit the steering rack. As you all know, it's a standard Ford Sierra item. You've taken off the donor vehicle. Particularly check the gaiters, make sure there's no damage to the gaiters at all. We do have new gaiters, very, very inexpensive. You need to check the ball joint in the end, so if you get it, get in the vice possibly, try to move it to make sure no play in that ball joint. Check those arms that they're not damaged. And that's really it. Re-grease it if necessary. Make sure that you've cleaned the thread up and those lock nuts go up and down the lock. They're quite free. Obviously paint it if you wish. And then you're going to come and fit it into the car. So you will have to file out those holes again in the chassis at the front for your 10mm bolts to go through, and basically that just goes on there like that, through there, and you pop the bolts through that you get in the kit. They go through there like that, tighten them up, pretty straightforward. And then we go on with the track rod ends. I think you get these in the kit. Remember, the left and right-handed, they go on there, pretty straightforward, and then into the bottom of the that way up, sorry, into the bottom of the stub axle. That's okay. The next thing we're going to move on to now is the anti-roll bar. Remember, when you're discussing this component, don't get mixed up with a rollover bar. The anti-roll bar is what goes underneath the car, and the rollover bar is what stops you being crushed in an accident. Both are often known as roll bars. So we're looking at the compliance bush set that we give you in the kit, and it's a heavy-duty set. That's the old rubber. It's a heavy-duty set for an estate car, so we're pretty happy that it is top side of its job for this application. And you can see there's 4 washers, 2 nylon locking nuts, a 2-piece bush set, or a 4-piece bush set, with an inner tube in like that. What we took to bits did have the smaller part going in the back like that, and the bigger part of the bush went through the front like that. And then the washers, if you remember, went on that way. But for neatness and it did seem to work. We did have one Robin Hood that went that way around, It didn't seem to make any difference. So, but they are supposed to go that way around in the real car. We're coming now to the anti-roll bar, and this is clearly a standard one against the one that's not quite so suitable for the later one. So we're going to start off, we're leaving the rubbers on it. That's the old washer and old spacer. We throw those away, although they're pretty horrible. They're not a lot of good in your Robin Hood now. And we'll start off by simply just putting those washers on there and on there, and we'll lay that on top of that those perforated plates, like so. And then we'll put the smaller part of the compliance bush on there like that. You'll see that that fits in that recess. We'll put that on there like that, and then we'll push that into that hole through there. Pretty straightforward. And then, so it doesn't all pop out, we'll put the other half in like that, and we'll put the washer on. It's a bit of a squeeze. You could really do with somebody just giving you a hand with that to squeeze that up, just to get a couple of threads there and to pop that nut on. Pretty straightforward. Okay? In fact, I've just shown it the way that we've done it on previous cars, which is wrong. Those washers are the wrong way round. So let's do it right, as they've said in the Haynes Workshop Manual, and how Henry's recommended it himself. We'll put them the right way round. So we'll put the washers that way like that, the way they should be. And that goes that way. It doesn't look so neat. I think it's a bit of a squeeze getting it all in. I think that's why we might have tried it. So we just need to get that. That's it, there is enough thread sticking through. So we've just got to force that through just to get enough thread to get that nut on, just to get us started. That's it, like that. Obviously, anything like that, run that nut up and down that before you start. No point getting to this stage and finding out that you can't get the flipping nut on. Okay, so we go to the other side, and I must confess that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get it on, and again with other people to help you makes it easier. So we'll put that washer on the right way, which is that way, and we put the smaller of the bushes on next like that. Put those bits in my pocket because you've just got to spring this into here, which is sometimes a bit difficult. So we just got to get that and spring it in like that. 1, 2, that's in. Oh, that's in there like that. We'll put the rest of that on like so. This might be a bit difficult to get on. So I'm not going to struggle with that. I'll wait till the helpers come back from the tea break to help me with that. So we'll come to the more important bit, the key thing. Now, the whole thing about this system is that we've set the caster of the chassis at exactly how we think it should be. Now, depending on your own requirements, you can alter the caster by filing out these holes or re-drilling these holes to move that backward and forward. You can see that rubber bush just there is very forgiving, so that can be moved backward and forward, and depending on where you put that Amiga shaped clamp, just excuse me, depending on where you put that Amiga shaped clamp, then that alters the bottom fixing. Remember, the further forward that you have that ball joint, then the more caster you've got. But what I'd say is there are holes already in here for this standard anti-roll bar. If you just set it up with the standard holes, then you won't be far wrong. So pretty straightforward. All that happens is that there's a great canch of holes there. There are holes there that fall into place. Two there, that side, and there's two that side. Basically, you've already marked this anti-roll bar where the bush used to be. So what happens is that we've now moved the rubber bushes and the omega-shaped brackets in further, so you need the same amount of material sticking out both sides. So imagine that you could see where it had been because it was shiny, it hadn't gone rusty, so you want the same amount sticking out. So that really just goes on there like that, and you just bolt it up with 10mm nuts and bolts, and that's pretty straightforward, and that's the suspension altogether. There's nothing magic about it. When you jack your car up, you can jack it up on that anti-roll bar. It is strong enough, and it works well. If you want to adjust the caster, then it's still easy. So I'll get this put together, I'll assemble it all, and then we'll turn the chassis up the right way. Just to go back to the people that may have the later anti-roll bars, or the earlier ones, or the ones that doesn't fit, what there is available for £15, there is this kit of adapter parts that will give you another set of holes. I'll just tip them out on here so you can see. That's available. So that is an adapter plate kit that goes on top of that plate, and it gives you a fresh set of holes to move your omega-shaped brackets. Basically, the problem is that with the later type anti-roll bar, that bracket finishes up exactly where the tube is. So what it means is that you haven't got a fix in, the tube's in the way. So that's why we've got the adapter plate. Having said all that, I personally feel at this early stage that that anti-roll bar is too heavy for a light car like the Robin Hood, and I think that you will get problems. So I'd be recommending people to whiz out to the breakers yard and park with a tenner and get them to give you that earlier type anti-roll bar. This is a 2B4 that we're just completing now. We've got Cobra hoops on this, which is a little bit confusing. Basically, it's using the donor vehicle tank that's just there, and we've put some little panels in the boot to fill up the spaces all the way around here, and we've carpeted it. You can see we've got some carpet in there to cover up the tank. There's not going to be a lot of room in this luggage compartment, but there'll be enough to get a few pairs of underpants and socks in there, and a few tins of Coke. These panels here are actually just prototype panels, these fiberglass panels. So if you could come in through that side. These are prototype panels that we've made. The ones that you'll get will need trimming, so there'll be excess material all the way around them. The two will be probably joined together Siamese fashion, and these holes won't be in. You'll have to cut these holes out yourself. But we spent quite a lot of time getting these to fit. So these fit quite well. They go on there like that, and these will push down over the carpet like that. And there probably won't be an awful lot will hold them in position. A couple of discrete self-tapping screws to hold them in. There's extensions to them that, excuse me, go down there like that, underneath there. They go down there, and it's quite possible that we'll be painting these in a colour, or possibly covering them with leather cloth. We don't know yet, but you'll get them in grey like that, and you'll have to either paint them black or paint them red, the same as the car, or cover them with leather cloth. You can see at my feet now there is a multi-bend tube that you'll get in your kit, and it's been bent quite precisely, and this has got in it the 4 sub-wing brackets that you require. Starting from the most bent end, the first bracket is the near side rear bracket, and we have to cut this now. So if we go along, look at that straight along there, we need to cut it about 2/3 the length of it straight, just there. So we'll cut that off like that, and we'll mark it for the rear near side. The next one, that again we'll cut at 2/3 along the straight, just there, that is the front near side. The next bracket, which is the opposite one to just there, but we again cut 2/3 along its length, just there, is the rear off side. So when I say off side, I do mean the driver's side, the side that's away from the curb. And then the bracket that's left, we'll cut it the length of that straight, the same length as that, so it's a matching one to that one just there, so we'll cut that the same, and we're cutting it off about there. So what we've got left is for another job altogether. So they're the 4 brackets: near side rear, near side bracket, the rear bracket, near side bracket, the front bracket, offside bracket, the rear bracket, offside bracket, the front. So that's front, off, side. Okay, so we'll put it in the vise and cut those up. Before I go any further, I will say that cycle wing brackets on this type of car have always been troublesome because of the fact we never know which wheels that our customers are going to fit. So basically the brackets that you'll get from us will be set up for our wheels which have the correct offset. So you may need to tweak these brackets in order to get them to fit your wheels and tyres correctly. So I'll get these cut up and then we'll show you how they fit onto the car now. Ready? Are you ready? We look now at the underside of the bonnet, which we've removed from the car, and you can see at the back, you can see the reinforcing strip that's on the back edge of the bonnet, and you can see the screws that are holding the demisting vents in position, and then you can see the wiper motor. Hopefully you can just see the little pieces of flat strip that we bent as brackets to hold the wiper on. Just there, they're just bent back on themselves at quite an acute angle.
Where?
Just here. That gives us the right angle for the wiper, so the spindles come through and there's sufficient material on the spindles to pick up your wiper arms. You can see where we've bolted the mechanism together, and then you can see how we've just got a bit of flat strip there and bent it, a bit of an offcut, and bent it accordingly just to support this end of the wiper motor, and mounted it through the holes that's already on the motor that's got rubber mountage for it. So all that's pretty straightforward. We've fastened the other end onto the web of the bonnet. I do think we had to grind a little bit away there of that centre fold for the mechanism to clear. You can see then the bolts that are sticking through for the windscreen pillars. The windscreen's on this car already, and we will be cutting those off so they don't foul on the chassis when they lift up. You can probably also see where we've a couple of holes for the cell tapping screws that we've drilled first as the dummy run. We've consequently moved the windscreen totally a little bit further back. As we point towards the front of the bonnet, you can see how we've got the little strips of metal there to spread the load where we've fastened the nose cone onto the bonnet, and then we've got the really important strip of metal at the front of the bonnet that's been bent in order to pick up the safety catch. And if we look just here, we can see how that's a piece of angle that you receive in your kit. It is sufficiently long to start off with the piece that goes underneath the car that picks up the handbrake, and then you need this much again to make this bracket for underneath the bonnet. And my colleague's just drawn this out for us. So we need to take 1/4 inch off both ends like that, 5 inches long, and then 16.5 inches along. We need to cut a 90-degree or a little bit less than 90-degree angle piece out of it, and then we probably need to drill a hole in the very middle just there, then do the same at the other end. And you can see that where we've taken that little 1/4 inch slot off it, the side, that's where it actually pushes into the area of the nose cone, just there, into the area of the bonnet. So it slots into there like that, and then it comes down, and we've got a little bit of a bend in it there. Or we can see, right, it's correct. So my colleague's drawn on there 10 inches from the end. We take out a little bit, a little cheese-shaped bit. It's about a 25-degree, in order so we can crank it downwards, and it comes along, and then we bend the strip at just under 90 degrees in the corner, like that. It goes along there. It'll pick up a piece of, we put a fancy bit of plate we've had for this exercise, but in yours you'll get a piece of 2-inch flat to bolt on the front there. And then to reinforce the corners, we put some plates in the corner, screwed them on like that, because your bonnet prop will be able to pick up into either one of those washers. And then you've got something there that's suitable for the safety catch from the Ford Sierra to click into there, like that. Notice we've got a gap either side, an equal gap about 1 inch either side. We'll go and look on the car so we can see where the bonnet picks up, the bonnet safety catch picks up on the car. We're just fitting the radiator of this car, but I'll come back to this at a later date. But I'll just point out some more of that 1 inch angle, that the ends have been flattened a little bit and they've gone into the tube there. We've chosen to drill through and put a 5mm or a 6mm bolt right the way through the tube there, bolt that on, and there's the original Ford Sierra safety catch that we've taken from the donor vehicle. It's just bolted through that angle like that. We could probably do a further bolt into that tube there to just stiffen it up. But that's basically how the safety catch will work. It's quite important, although having said that, the catches that you get now with the 2B are a lot better than the new SVA type. As we look now, we can see that we've got the heater matrix mounted just there behind the firewall panel, and underneath it is a heater blower, and we've made some fancy little strips to hold it all on, and poke the 2 tubes from the heater matrix through that slotted hole in the front of that firewall panel. And basically there is no provision at this stage for demisters on here, apart from the heat that would come out of the cockpit and through the vents on the bonnet. But basically it is a recirculating heater, and it does get really warm. So you'll find that that is pointed into the cockpit and does work quite well. If the camera person could just come from this angle, you'll be able to see the heater blower that you all recognise bolted onto the bottom of the heater matrix, and there's some brackets there that's coming off that tunnel panel. So you can see that, and that does work quite well. But don't get too deep into this exercise, because when you fit in your wiper motor onto your bonnet, it's very close to this this matrix. So you've got to do the 2 exercises together, because as the bonnet comes down, it does get very close to there. So don't get too excited with that until you've got your heater. You can probably see just here is the area for the battery. Slightly different on these later cars, that we've reduced the space for the passenger's feet, assuming that the passenger isn't that large, and that she, meaning your wife probably, has got short legs and she likes to have her feet against something solid. So we've got the firewall, we've got the footwell panel there, and we've got the battery in this space just here. And we've just, if you use an old seat belt around the battery, then you can lift it in and out quite easily. You will need a bracket on that to stop it floating around. So the battery sits in there and it does work okay. And again, we've got a little bit of this copper, domestic copper heating pipe that's ducted in the heater. Make sure you keep your carburettor covered up like that at all times, because you might just drop something down. If you've got a small son, a mischievous son, you could drop something into your carburettor. We're looking now particularly at the cycle wing brackets, and you can see that we've cut the tube up as shown, and we've got them pushed onto the solid bar, and that is the cycle wing brackets virtually how they'll be. And we're looking now to fit the wings We've got a particularly interesting exercise here because we've got the standard size wings that you get in the kit, and we have got the 205 tyres, and they will only just fit on, and they will only just clear the mudguard, the tyre. So you do need to put the snap-on edge round the trim, round the wing, and you can see that we've taken little bites out of these standard wings in order for them to go round the bracket like that and to fit on. So we've got them like that. We've got to juggle them carefully just so that they clear the tyre that side, and if they stick out, if the wheel sticks out a little bit, it'll have to stick out on the back, but they just cover. So we've got to fit these. We'll try these on. We'll put the snap-on edge and show you the finished item. Basically, all we'll do is put a little bit of a packer between the tube and the wing, and then just put self-tapping screws straight into the tube. At a later date, we could swap those for small 5mm nuts and bolts that would make a better job of it. So we'll come back to that later. You'll notice we haven't yet drilled those top washers yet to adjust the caster. The camber, sorry, so we've still got that to do. You'll see the little small self-tapping screws that we've put into the tube there to stop the tubes rotating. So these are quite solid now, and you can still tweak them a little bit to get them to just to fit perfectly. At this stage now, I'd say we've got about 1 3/4 between the tyre and the tube. When you do put these wings on, you could, in fact, put some sticky tape, some sellotape on the back of the wing, and then rough up the wing bracket and put quite a lot of silicone sealer on there, and then sit the wing onto the bracket like that, and make sure it doesn't move overnight, let it go solid, and then you've got a bed of rubberized material for the wing to sit on. Obviously, when you lift the wing off, because you've had the masking tape in between, that means you can part it and put it back on and off at any time. To return to the luggage compartment covers, when you get your components in your kit, it'll come as a one-piece moulding just like this, and you'll actually have to trim it and to cut it into pieces. So here you see the 4 pieces that's involved. These 2 are the pieces that you know go just behind your elbow as you drive, and they fit onto the front of that, like that. So that means you've got to cut this in half along there like that, and trim it accordingly. Probably you'll cut a wedge-shaped piece out of that to taper it so that the tapered ends go towards the car. So you'll cut a piece out of there like that. Then you'll cut into that corner like that, and along there like that. And then we'll probably cut that piece off there like that, and that's strapped. And obviously you'll cut down the middle, and then you'll trim along the edges like that, all the way around like that, to trim it neat. So on top of that you will need to, as you can see, trim away an area just there for your roll bar, and then probably something like that for the roll bar stay. But we'll give you a little bit more information on that probably later on. But in any event, it will be a lot better for you to cut a cardboard template of the component before you actually cut into this. And remember, you can paint it black or cover it with leather cloth, or possibly cover it in the corresponding colour that, or paint it in the corresponding colour that you carves. To cut it, probably the easiest way, it is only very thin GRP, the easiest way is just use a hacksaw blade, and you can cut it with that, just with a hacksaw blade. It'll probably take about 10 minutes. You'll probably find the jigsaw is a little bit too coarse, and you could finish up cutting too much off. You now see the cycle wing brackets in the final position, and you can see how we've got a very small self-tapping screw that holds them in position. They are quite a tight fit, and that one little screw just secures them. We've got a reasonable gap between the tyre and the bracket just there, and we've decided to put small metal plates on the bracket around about 2 inches wide, with just ordinary self-tapping screws. And we've now got the final wing, the final colour is red, and we've taken some little bites out of the wing just there for the cycle wing bracket, and we've put on the black plastic snap-on finisher for the SVA. And you can see that when this is then placed on the bracket like that, that it does fit on quite well, and we can manoeuvre the wing so that at least on the outside it completely covers the tyre. And in fact it does just cover the tyre on the inside as well. So these standard wings will just cover a 205 tyre, and I think they do look particularly neat and attractive and purposeful. Obviously they are just on the border of being the right size, but providing that there isn't any tyre sticking from the outside, then that is in order for the SVA. The inside obviously doesn't matter. Once the wing's in position, then it's very easy just to drill through the wing and that metal plate and put nuts and bolts through. We're not looking to try to drill through the tube so accurately that's difficult. Now we've got a bigger area that is easier to fasten to, and we can obviously just bend these plates accordingly so they fit the wing flush underneath, and then just ordinary 5mm nuts and bolts through them work perfectly. Our next stage now is to move, possibly the camera person would like to come square on so we can see the wing from the square on application. And that gives a similar kind of back gap to the rear wings, so that the two look correct. If you wanted to see a mudguard that was closer to the tyre, then that's entirely up to you. You could bring it down a little bit by just adjusting the brackets. The next thing is we're going to go to the radiator. Large cooling area radiator, and you do need to trim off that bracket just there, that bracket just there, and that big bracket at the back. Just a hacksaw blade and you'll soon cut that off. It's only relatively easy to cut plastic. Now we've got the radiator already in the car, as you can see, and it is a tight fit for everything to fit in and for the radiator to miss the nose cone, to get the fan in and all the pipes. So just to go over it, the most important thing is that in your kit you will see that we have given you a little bit of flat metal. That piece of flat metal there. And what happens with that, you bend it so as it finishes up like that. And then we've taken off the timing belt cover, so you can see that you need to temporarily fix that onto the front of that cover, just with 2 self-tapping screws. And this is how you will locate accurately the position of the radiator. So you'll fasten that, we put a little cut in the top so it misses that little indentation. That goes on the top of the timing belt cover with 2 self-tapping screws, and then the radiator is temporarily fastened on to the front of the cover with that bracket, like so, and 2 small self-tapping screws go into that bracket. So you can see it's quite a tight fit, and we give you that bracket. Remember, it's only temporary, you take it out once it's in position. So we've got that bracket locating the radiator. So basically the top of the radiator and the timing belt cover are all flush like that. It's all directly in line, and we've got the radiator as close to the timing belt cover as possible. So with that suspended just there, and probably a few cable ties to support the radiator again temporarily, we then go on to make the brackets that's needed. You can see we've just got some tube which are supplied in the kit. We squash the end, drill a 1/2 inch hole in it, and then crank the brackets like that, so as to firmly fix the radiator in the position that we've temporarily put it in. So there's 2 tubular brackets at the top, and if we look at the bottom where the tripod leg is, you'll see we've got some flat strip that goes at the bottom, again on those little pegs that stick out, plastic pegs that stick out of the radiator. You can see that they go into the chassis, and we've got those special self-tapping bolts we've screwed straight into the 2mm chassis tube, and the radiator is quite secure and quite firm. You can see also that we've used original hoses from the Ford Sierra, supplemented by the 1 convoluted hose that fits on the bottom of the radiator, and all that's supplemented by the 2 metal pipes that we give you in the kit. So you can see the one that goes backward and then underneath the bar and picks up the bottom hose from the Pinto engine, and then the one that's bent at 180 degrees that goes back on itself and connects up on the top hose of the radiator. There's a little bit you need to cut off about 3 inches long to join that on, so you can cut that off the top or the bottom hose wherever you've got most material spare. You can see we have tied it with a cable tie onto the inlet manifold. I'm not sure whether that's satisfactory, but all that has to clear the bonnet. The good news is that with this new system now, that the very parts of the engine and the radiator that do get hot are now underneath the bonnet, so you haven't got the problem that we had before of the radiator blister in the nose cone. So that's well underneath the bonnet, and if anything gets on, anything that's very close, it will with the fiberglass, but the stainless steel bonnet. Although the fan is in position, we haven't yet secured it yet, and all that will happen is that you'll see it sits nicely onto the core of the radiator. All that will happen is we'll get some small angle brackets that will be made from flat strip, kind of 1 inch wide by 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and we'll just put 1 small hole into the side of that metal pressing on the side of the radiator. Don't drill into the core, and then just fix the bracket there, and a little bit of a longer one on that side. Again, you can see the bonnet catch that we've got on that bar at the front just there that works quite well, and we've got a cable tie holding that pipe in position. You'll probably want something a little bit better than that eventually. If you find that when we've just managed to bleed the system quite successfully, get all the air out, often you have to jack the back of the car up in order to get the air out, but if you find you've really got a problem with air in the system, then it's quite permissible just to drill a 1/8 hole in that metal tube just there, and put a small self-tapping screw with a rubber washer on. That soon lets the air out. Utilising the original brackets that came on the Ford Sierra's header tank, we've managed to bolt it to this